My brother Spencer was currently standing inside a high-end luxury dealership trying to finance a $140,000 Porsche using our company credit line. He did not know that less than 2 minutes ago, a judge signed my emergency forensic injunction and froze every single penny of the $565,000 he was trying to steal. Posting from a burner since half my family still reads my main. Details tweaked, not the betrayal. Quick context: I'm Owen, age 34, male. I am a custom cabinet builder working out of Columbus, Ohio, and I am the middle kid who spent 9 years actually running our family shop while my older brother pretended to be a corporate executive. Our business, Vanguard Custom Cabinetry, was started by our father, Frank, 30 years ago. Dad was a master carpenter who could look at a piece of raw walnut and tell you exactly how it would look as a finished kitchen island. I inherited his love for the trade. By age 22, I was working in the shop full-time, covered in sawdust, learning how to cut flawless dovetail joints. My older brother, Spencer, wanted nothing to do with manual labor. He went off to college, got a degree in marketing, and spent his 20s bouncing between low-level sales jobs in Chicago while acting like he was a Wall Street titan whenever he came home for holidays. Dad ran the shop, and I ran the field operations. We built a rock-solid reputation among high-end home builders in the area. By 2021, we were doing roughly $1.2 million in annual revenue. That was the year Dad had a minor stroke. He recovered, but his doctor told him he needed to step away from the daily stress of running a business. Dad called a family meeting at a local Perkins restaurant to discuss the future. Spencer drove down from Chicago in a leased BMW, wearing a tailored suit that probably cost more than my entire weekly paycheck. He immediately took control of the table. He said Dad needed to hand over the administrative reins to someone with real corporate experience. Dad looked at me, then looked at Spencer. I told Dad that I loved being in the shop and on job sites, but I did not have time to handle the payroll, invoicing, and tax filings while also building the actual cabinets. Spencer smiled, ordered a prime rib, and said he would handle the back office for a modest salary and a 30% stake in the company. Dad agreed. He retained 40%, I kept 30%, and Spencer took the remaining 30%. That was the biggest mistake we ever made. Within 6 months of Spencer taking over the books, the culture of the company changed completely. Spencer moved himself into the small office at the front of our shop. He bought a $4,500 mahogany desk. He hung framed pictures of himself golfing. He started wearing Brooks Brothers shirts to a place where we literally sprayed lacquer and cutting oil. The real trouble started when I noticed our primary lumber supplier, Ohio Hardwoods, was threatening to put us on credit hold. I walked into Spencer's office with a handful of past due notices totaling $34,200. I asked him why the hell we hadn't paid them when we had just wrapped up a massive $85,000 kitchen remodel for a client in Upper Arlington. Spencer did not even look up from his iPhone. He told me that cash flow was tight and that I should stick to running the table saw while he handled the high-level finance. I decided to look into our business banking app that night. Spencer had changed the master password, claiming it was for cybersecurity compliance. I had to call our local bank manager, who had known my dad for 20 years, to get read-only access restored to my account. When I finally logged in, my stomach dropped. Our operating account, which usually carried a healthy cushion of $120,000, was down to exactly $4,312. I started scrolling through the transaction history. There were no major payments to suppliers. Instead, there was a steady stream of charges that had absolutely nothing to do with custom cabinetry. I saw a $1,200 charge at a high-end steakhouse in downtown Columbus. There were multiple charges for $400 a night at a luxury boutique hotel. There was even a $5,500 charge to a designer clothing store. Spencer was treating our corporate account like his personal trust fund. The next morning, I confronted him in the shop right before the guys turned on the dust collectors. I threw the printed bank statements onto his expensive mahogany desk. I demanded to know why the company was paying for his five-star dinners and weekend getaways. Spencer did not even blink. He leaned back in his chair, smirked, and told me that those were legitimate business development expenses. He claimed he was networking with luxury real estate agents to secure higher-end clientele. I told him we did not need to network with anyone because our lead time was already booked out 6 months in advance purely through word of mouth. He told me to get out of his office. I went straight to Dad's house. Dad was sitting on his porch, looking frail but sharp. I showed him the statements. Dad was heartbroken. He called Spencer and told him to come over immediately. When Spencer arrived, he did not apologize. Instead, he brought a folder. He opened it and presented a document that completely caught us off guard. It was a promissory note, dated 3 months prior, stating that Vanguard Custom Cabinetry had borrowed $250,000 from a private entity called Apex Management Holdings. The document bore my dad's signature. Spencer explained that because cash flow was low, he had secured this private loan to keep the business afloat. He claimed the luxury expenses were paid out of that loan money, which he considered his personal compensation for saving the company. Dad stared at the document. His hands were shaking. He whispered that he had never signed anything from Apex Management. He remembered Spencer bringing him some routine insurance paperwork to sign while he was still in the rehabilitation hospital recovering from his stroke. Spencer had slipped the loan agreement into the middle of a stack of medical authorizations. I realized then that my brother was not just greedy. He was a criminal. He had used our father's medical vulnerability to forge a $250,000 debt against the company we built. I knew that if I filed a standard police report right then, Spencer would use company funds to hire a high-priced defense attorney, drag the case out for years, and drain the remaining equity of the business until we were completely bankrupt. I needed to be smarter than him. I needed to let him think he was winning while I built an airtight legal trap. I spent the next 14 months pretending to be completely defeated. I told Spencer that I was tired of fighting and that I would just focus on building the cabinets. Spencer loved it. He assumed his corporate alpha routine had broken my spirit. He began taking even more control, eventually convincing Dad to sign over his remaining 40% voting shares into a temporary voting trust managed by Spencer, claiming it was necessary for an upcoming commercial line of credit expansion. With that trust in place, Spencer technically held 70% of the voting power. He immediately used it to cut my salary by 20%, claiming the business was facing macroeconomic headwinds. While Spencer was busy feeling like a corporate king, I was quietly building my own financial launchpad. I registered a brand new, independent limited liability company called Heritage Woodworks. I did not use the family lawyer. I found an aggressive commercial attorney in Cleveland who had zero ties to my family. I also reached out to our top 3 custom home builders. These were guys I had worked with personally for a decade. They did not care about Spencer's mahogany desk or his Brooks Brothers shirts. They cared that my crew delivered flawless cabinets on time, every single time. I met with them individually at a local diner. I told them that the internal dynamic at Vanguard was becoming unstable due to Spencer's financial mismanagement. I assured them that I was launching a new venture and that my entire team of master carpenters would be coming with me. All 3 builders immediately agreed to shift their upcoming project contracts to my new entity, Heritage Woodworks, the moment I gave the word. But I could not just walk away and let Spencer keep the $565,000 in physical assets, machinery, and real estate equity that belonged to the original family shop. Our shop sat on a valuable 2-acre commercial lot that Dad had purchased outright in 1996. The building and the industrial CNC machinery inside were worth at least $450,000 completely paid off. Spencer's forged loan from Apex Management was actually a shell company he had set up himself using a dummy corporation registered in Delaware. He was planning to use that fake $250,000 loan, which had ballooned to $380,000 with fabricated interest charges, to foreclose on the family business assets, strip the real estate, sell the machinery, and leave Dad and me with nothing. The secret discovery happened 3 weeks ago. Spencer left his office laptop open on his desk while he took a 2-hour lunch at an upscale country club. I walked into his office, plugged a flash drive into the USB port, and copied his entire local hard drive. When I analyzed the files with my commercial attorney that evening, we found the smoking gun. We found the digital design files where Spencer had literally scanned our dad's signature from an old Christmas card and used a software tool to overlay it onto the fraudulent Apex Management promissory note. We also found his personal ledger showing that he had already embezzled an additional $185,000 directly out of our corporate operating account over the last 12 months to pay off his personal credit cards and fund a down payment on a luxury condo. The total amount Spencer had stolen or was actively attempting to fraud us out of was exactly $565,000. My attorney and I spent the next 2 weeks quietly preparing an ex parte emergency filing. In commercial law, an ex parte motion means you go before a judge without notifying the opposing party first, because if you notify them, they will immediately destroy evidence or liquidate the bank accounts. We lined up a certified forensic document examiner who provided a sworn affidavit proving the signature on the loan was a digital forgery. We also attached the bank records showing the direct line of embezzlement into Spencer's personal accounts. The trigger event occurred on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the shop finishing up a set of white oak cabinets when Spencer walked past the bay doors wearing a brand new designer watch and a pair of Italian leather shoes. He didn't say a word to the crew. He just got into his car and left. 10 minutes later, I received a text notification from our shop's security system. Spencer had just authorized a wire transfer of $45,000 from our remaining business reserves to an exotic car dealership in North Columbus. He was closing the deal on a high-end Porsche he had been eyeing for months. He thought he was completely untouchable. I immediately called my attorney, who was already waiting at the Franklin County Courthouse with our emergency motion. Within 20 minutes, my attorney was standing in front of a commercial docket judge. He presented the digital forensics, the signature analysis, and the real-time evidence that Spencer was actively using embezzled funds to purchase a luxury vehicle. The judge did not hesitate. She signed an emergency temporary restraining order and an immediate asset freeze on every single account associated with Vanguard Custom Cabinetry, Spencer's personal names, and his fraudulent Delaware shell company. The bank executed the freeze exactly 2 minutes before Spencer's wire transfer could clear at the dealership. I drove up to the luxury dealership myself to watch the climax unfold. I parked my beat-up Ford F-250 right next to the pristine glass showroom. Through the window, I could see Spencer sitting at a glass desk with a sales representative, looking incredibly smug. He had a gold pen in his hand, ready to sign the final title paperwork for a shiny gray Porsche 911 Carrera. Suddenly, the sales manager walked out of a back office. His face was completely pale. He walked over to Spencer's desk and whispered something. Spencer's smug smile instantly vanished. He stood up, slammed his hand on the desk, and pulled out his phone. I watched him try to open his mobile banking app. His screen must have shown the red frozen account notification because his face turned a deep, furious shade of crimson. He began shouting at the sales manager, demanding to know why his wire transfer had been rejected. That was when 2 plainclothes detectives from the Financial Crimes Unit, whom my attorney had alerted with the judge's signed fraud order, walked into the showroom. They approached Spencer, showed their badges, and informed him that he was being detained in connection with an ongoing grand larceny and commercial forgery investigation. Spencer looked around the showroom in absolute panic. He saw me standing outside the glass doors. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He realized that the quiet, submissive younger brother who spent the last year covered in sawdust had just dismantled his entire life in a single afternoon. The detectives placed him in handcuffs right there in front of the wealthy clientele and let him out the front doors. His leased BMW was towed from the lot an hour later because he was 3 months behind on those payments too. The legal payback was absolute. Because we proved the corporate voting trust was obtained through fraudulent misrepresentation, the court immediately dissolved it, restoring Dad's 40% share and giving me complete control of Vanguard Custom Cabinetry. We used the forensic audit to legally wipe out the fake $250,000 loan from Spencer's shell company. The court ordered Spencer's personal assets liquidated to repay the $185,000 he had embezzled. His luxury condo was sold at a sheriff's auction, his expensive mahogany desk was sold for scrap value, and his entire designer wardrobe was liquidated. He lost his status, his car, his home, and his reputation in the Columbus business community. He eventually pleaded guilty to felony commercial fraud and is currently serving a 3-year sentence in a state correctional facility. Dad and I are doing better than ever. I officially merged the old shop assets into my new entity, Heritage Woodworks. We have 12 full-time master carpenters now, and our order book is completely full for the next 18 months. Dad comes by the shop every Thursday just to smell the fresh-cut walnut and drink coffee with the guys. He looks healthier than he has in years, knowing his life's work wasn't stolen by the golden child. It turns out that when you spend your life building things with your hands, you learn exactly how to take down a rotten structure before it collapses on you. If you think that brotherly betrayal was wild, wait until you hear about the time my aunt tried to sell my grandmother's $400,000 farm from under her while she was sedated in a hospice care facility.